I've written like an epic fantasy novel, and then I wrote a phrase. And right now, I'm working kind of like on an existential novel. I self-published it first. Okay, yeah. There are stages you gotta just read that. There's no mistake that if they might be. What was called? Yeah. So it's like much more. Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming out on a super rainy, wet, kind of gross and humid day. And thank you for waiting while we got everything set up, because I am not always the most remembering person in the world and forgot some key items. So thank you so much for waiting and for coming out on a rainy night. So we will start with a land acknowledgement. We'd like to acknowledge that Brockton Writer Series does its work on the land of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, Huron-Wendat, and Mississaugas of the New Credit. We acknowledge the ways that colonization, genocide, and racism have impacted Indigenous peoples here, and that everybody, including settlers such as myself, has a responsibility to listen to Indigenous voices and to make space at voices at events like our own for Indigenous voices. So do please keep an eye on our programming, because we do consider that a priority, as is programming people who are BIPOC, to us LGBTQIA and disabled. This is all written into our mandate, and we consider it really important. I personally feel it would be remiss mentioning a genocide without acknowledging the one that is happening currently. And I hope that we are all keeping an eye on that and caring about that and doing what we can to pressure our elected officials about Indigenous causes, about the genocide in Palestine, and about these issues which are so critical to human rights and human life in 2024. Thank you for all of us here. Thank you to Glad Day. Our show will run as usual. Guest speaker, Q&A for the guest speaker, 4 readers, Q&A for the 4 readers. So if you're online, please remember to type your questions into the chat as they occur to you. There is a bit of a time delay, so it will help us out if you type them in as you think of them. And now I'm going to pass it over to my wonderful co-host, Ellen.
All right, thanks, Dorianne. So just a little bit of background on the Brockton Writer Series. It was founded in November 2009, which means that we've been active in the Toronto literary scene for over a decade. Our nimble Brockton volunteers are Jen Albert, who's not here anymore because she moved away, but that's okay. Nancy K. Clark, Dorianne Emerton, Faye Dong, and I'm Aileen Crowley. So if you're interested in joining this excellent team of volunteers, we're always looking for more people to help out, so you can talk to us after the readings tonight. Join us! We'd also like to acknowledge with deep thanks the continued support of the Ontario Arts Council, who made this series possible. And finally, our sincere thanks to all of you who are here tonight, whether in person or online. We're so glad you're all here and listening to these excellent readers we have. So we're going to start with our guest speaker. So tonight we have Beverly Banbury. Beverly has been a book publicist since 2012, and she's worked with writers from most genres, including horror, mystery, crime, SFF, and others. Originally from Tampa, Florida, Beverly resides in Brampton, Ontario, and she lives there with her husband, stepson, 2 tiny dogs, and 2 normal-sized cats. It's true, though. Very small.
And the chair is optional. You don't have to.
Yeah, I'll probably stand because like
There you go.
but please. Okay, there we go. Everybody hear me okay? This way? Oh, yeah.
There we go.
I mean, I'm also pretty loud, which helps, but we do have online people, so
Yeah, you gotta just be close.
I gotta be real close. Okay, anyway, hello, everyone. Is anyone here not an author? Yeah, there you go. I'm like, not here. I just curious, like who my audience is, right? So most of you then hopefully will get a little something out of this. So, I've been working with authors since 2012. I've worked a lot on a lot of things, but I get the most questions, even in this day and age, about social media. So I thought, let me talk a little about that. And as you notice, I titled it in a complex social media landscape. And it is, it's like, especially with what happened with Twitter, like all these different offshoots, like it's kind of a mess. And it can be hard to know what to do and what you can skip and you have to do it all. So I just want to cover some of those topics with you. And now I also need to see my writing. Okay. So anyway, just want to help you simplify, how you approach social media, because I think it doesn't have to be as complicated as some people make it out to be. So what's the point of social media? What are your goals as authors? Networking is a big one with other authors, with agents, publishers, editors, whatever. I actually think that's actually what Facebook is the best for, interestingly. Facebook doesn't work as well in some ways for finding audience and stuff. So, I mean, granted, that may depend on your age group. Because I do understand now that Facebook is kind of more like an old people thing, but if you're doing Facebook, it's a great place to have, those kinds of relationships with people. But anyway, okay, well, hold on. I'm really sorry. I had my up close glasses on, but then I couldn't see you guys, so I'm kind of having to do some of this. So the major platforms, I already talked about Facebook. Then the rest of them all work very similarly. And I'm going to actually talk about some daily steps, or mostly daily steps, that I suggest to my clients. So it's actually like just a little mini checklist to help you kind of get through your thing. So the biggest ones people are still using right now, again, aside from Facebook, are Threads, which of course is Meta / Facebook, sort of something they launched after people started really leaving Twitter in droves. I actually don't use it a lot because I have this little rebel streak and I don't want Meta to own literally all of my things. Because I already use Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp, and I'm like, no. That said, there's plenty of people on it, a lot of people on it, because it's such an easy thing to just be like, click one button and you're in. So there's a lot of people in the industry using it. Feel free to check it out. And then of course there's Instagram, which, I mean, it's been around a while. I think we're all pretty familiar with that. And TikTok, which is a little bit terrifying for a lot of people, which is fair. And we'll talk a little more about that. And finally, X or Twitter. Some people are definitely still using it. I have mostly stopped, but I put a pinned post at the top, with my info, which leads me to the next thing. You definitely don't have to do it all. You don't have to be busy on everything every day, or your entire life will be social media, right? So I usually just tell people, pick one or two that you want to do and do it. But what I do recommend is on most of them, you can't get all of them, honestly, at this point. But on most of them, if you decide, go ahead, sign up, even if you're not going to use it, so that you just have a profile. And that profile will have a place for a link. And the link can go wherever you want it to go. It can go to your website, it can go to your other social media, whatever you want. So even if you're not going, sorry, I talked next to them. So even if you're not going to use it, make a profile. Make sure people can find you if they're looking for you. Because gosh, if somebody's actually Googling you, like, that's super exciting and you want it to work, right? So, okay. So now actually making use of it, growing your social media. And when I say grow, I don't just mean numbers, because numbers are okay, but they're not really the main thing. What you really want to do with it is you want to maybe get a few extra readers, right? You want to use it to help sell some more books. And the main thing is building this up is slow. Anybody who tells you there's a quick way to get an audience in social media is trying to sell you a scam. I'm just going to tell you that right now. It's not, don't buy followers, it doesn't work. Sorry. Oh yeah, so anyway, consistency is definitely the biggest thing. I say daily. I know the real world. Maybe you're not going to get through it every day. Don't beat yourself up about it, okay? Just do your. But this is kind of the big meat here. This is my checklist that I give people. So daily. Interact with people you already follow. Seems like a silly thing to have to say, but some people get very focused on, oh, I gotta build, be more people. That you forget that you neglect the people who are already there with you. So you want to nurture those people that you're following. So I usually say if you want to actually, bring it down to, a task list, leave 5 comments a day on something or more, if you want, but leave 5 comments, substantive ones. You can do a yay or cool or whatever, but also if somebody's talking about more of a concept, you can speak to that. Just you want to be yourself to some degree, maybe not completely, depends, how shy or not shy you are. And of course, you do want to try to meet new people. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this because you're like, okay, that's easier said than done. But one of the things you can do, again, other than Facebook, that's kind of very separate from all this, but on all the other ones I've talked about, and Blue Sky and just about anything, you can look up keywords, hashtags, things like that. So if your genre, say, for example, is horror, which is something probably the thing I work with the most, if an author wants to search, horror reader, horror books, am writing horror or whatever, like you can take those kinds of keywords and hashtags and you can find people who are gonna actually have the potential to be interested. They're not just randos, well, maybe they're randos, but the randos who read what you write. And so you want to kind of take that and interact with them a little, follow them. You don't want to harass them. You don't want to just be like, here's the link to my book. You want to kind of just have like a conversation, like if you were at a party kind of a thing. But you follow a few of these people a week, it's slow and easy. But as you get to know them, as you're going through that first step of nurturing the people you already follow, then you kind of are building new relationships. It's literally itemizing a way to build new relationships because it's not always easy, certainly not online. And I know, again, another obvious one, post regularly. And what do I post is the question, right? That's actually the biggest question is, I don't like to talk about myself. What do I even do? That's the hard part. If you're going to do social media, you kind of have to put a little of yourself out there, but you get to pick what it is. You don't have to share every single thing in your life. You don't have to share pictures of your kids or whatever, like that is up to you. But things like pictures of your cat. Did you bake some bread? Like just silly things like that. That's all fine. Your daily life makes you a real person and makes you relatable. And part of building these relationships is getting people to see you as a person, and to think, oh, I like this person. Or, oh, you know what, I trust what this person's saying. Those are the kinds of feelings you want to inspire in people with this sort of thing. So, sorry, again, glasses. Oh, the other thing is, of course, check for replies and messages, like direct messages daily in case you actually miss something that's important. A lot of it's going to be spam, silly stuff, but one time I found in my message requests something that had been sent 6 months earlier, somebody that wanted to work with me. And of course, it was too late by then, right? So, I try to just keep an eye on that. And I recommend you do too, even if it's not going to really yield much most of the time. And be merciless in curation. If you decide you don't want to follow somebody anymore, unfollow them. You know what? Don't worry about it. Unfollow them. If they're going to make a big deal out of it, that's their problem, and that's not your problem. Okay? Because you can only focus on so much at once. Our brains are not built to have 10,000 friends. That's not really how it works, right? So if something is tiresome to you, or draining your energy, or you're just not interested, that's fine. Unfollow. I guess the main thing is when you're posting and interacting, just don't make it all about business all the time. And if you're not sure what you want to say, I actually have a thing I didn't think to print any out or whatever, but I have a PDF that actually has a little kind of sample calendar of social media posts. Feel free to contact me after this. My cards are on the table, or just Google me. I'm the only Beverly Bamber I'm aware of. And I'll gladly email you this PDF. Sorry, I didn't bring any, but it just mix it up a little. So one thing some people like to do is plan their content ahead of time. So you're not scrambling every day and going, oh God, now what do I do? So I recommend to those people, kind of take a block of time, whether it's weekly or monthly or whatever works for you. And just set a plan. You can just write it in a spreadsheet or in a Word doc, like it doesn't matter. Just figure out what kinds of things am I gonna do. Write it out, and you can, if you like, throw it into a scheduler. So again, if you're somebody who likes to plan ahead and doesn't want to wing it, there's really great programs out there. Buffer's one I used to use a lot. Planoly, Loomly, I don't know, there's a bunch of them. And some of them even now do TikTok. Speaking of TikTok, I definitely get a lot of questions about TikTok. No, you don't have to do it, okay? You don't. It's something, I actually find TikTok very unpleasant because I have a lot of noise sensitivities. So I have to, if I'm gonna look at it, that phone's gotta be turned down or I'm just in misery. But some people really wanna get in on the whole book talk thing, and that's cool if you want to get into this video content thing. You'll wanna learn a little about how to use their tools, but they're not too difficult once you kind of get it explained. It's the most video editing I've ever done is on TikTok. But if you do it, it works exactly the same as the other things. If you're trying to build an audience, you're gonna look for the book talk hashtag or, you know, whatever genre or poetry or whatever, you're gonna look for those people and you're gonna interact with them. That all works the same. The discoverability on TikTok is pretty decent. But again, if you don't wanna do it, don't do it. There's no pressure at all, you know? People will figure out how to find you if they're looking for you. Some people who are particularly busy have also just hired a virtual assistant person to do some of this stuff to help them write the content, or at least to schedule it, because it's also very tedious. Like sometimes if you get bored, you have ADHD or whatever, it can be hard to just sit and just do this repetitive task, right? So there's some really affordable assistance you can get. Again, if you're somebody who is going to have that kind of priority. Not everybody does, and not everybody has to. Like, just remember, all of this is just how does it fit with you and your own life. So the other big question is, how often do you post promotion? How often do you say buy my book? Definitely not every day, unless you're like, say, a week from a publication date or some special occasion. Then you probably want to say every day, oh my gosh, my book's coming in 7 days. 6 days, 5 days, you know, do a countdown, that's fine. But I mean, all of the time, you wanna, you know, probably a couple times a week. You don't want people to forget who you are and what your raison d'etre is and all of that, but you know, mix it up. Again, if you get that sample calendar thing that I was talking about, I actually have that sort of placed in there, just like do this on X day, this on X day. So that might be useful for you if you're curious about this kind of thing. And really tell your story, you know, who are you? What are the things that you're passionate about? Whether it's something big, like what's going on in Palestine, or whether it's something small that's just going on in your life that you're really passionate about. Like lately, I know this is really silly. Lately, it's been my dogs. They are bringing me so much joy, and I'm just taking pictures of them all the time. And that's kind of what's really helping my mental health right now. So a lot of people are seeing a lot of very tiny dogs if they follow me on Instagram. So. And again, you know, you don't have to do it all. So if you're feeling like you're not doing it right, don't worry about that. Throw that out, put it behind you, because there isn't really a right way. There is a wrong way, but there's not a specific right way. Sorry, by wrong way, I just mean, you know, the people who literally never post anything other than book link, book link, but nobody's paying attention because they're just being advertised to 24/7, right? Actually everything, sorry, I hope I didn't talk so fast that you couldn't understand me. I just kind of revved up. I haven't been out seeing people in a really long time. So again, contact me if you have questions. I love to talk, as you can see.
Or those are questions now.
Or I was gonna say, you know, there's also this Q&A coming up. And all that too. So I guess that's it. So.
So do we have questions for Bever? I know I was taking a lot of notes on my phone on things that I should probably be doing, and I'm not. I'm like, I got a story published, everybody read it. And then I don't do anything for 3 weeks. And then I'm like,
Yeah.
no.
I know how it goes.
Okay, this isn't actually a question. Sorry. I do use social media. This is a couple of things that I've learned about audience. I do quite a bit of public reading, and that's a great way to find followers. People come up to you and say, can I have your IG? I want to follow you. And then you know that your followers are real people that have heard your work. And you know, you can interact with them and remember their face, and then go to more events and keep seeing the same people over and over. It's really, really great to have that in real life dimension. That every time I read, I give people my Instagram, like, you know, as my promo or whatever at events. So
Absolutely, like I do a lot of conventions and stuff, and I always get more followers after that. I'll encourage people. Like when you're doing, you know, when you go to panel or whatever and you do your little intro, I'll just say, hey, I'm Beverly Bambry. I'm the only one there is. Just Google my name, follow me, you know, that kind of thing. It's at Beverly Bambry, and it's just quick, you move on, but it's true. Doing those events is always an awesome way to network and meet people.
and there's lots of them in Toronto. There's
Oh, yeah.
every day of the week practically you
Yeah.
can find one. Yeah, one right now. The other thing I've done is I created an author page, so I have my own Instagram for things like that. And then my author page, I have a pin that says, you know, if you want to follow me in my author persona, I'm there. And what I do there, and has been working for me, is I've been posting free content. So I've been serializing a book I wrote and just putting up flashes every day. And now I have followers who come and check in on like, what's the next installment of the story. And yeah, it's free, but the book ain't published yet. So, you know, and they say like, when you publish the book, I'll read it. 'Cause
There you go.
I'm following every day. It's like a soap opera, like what's happening today. So I recommend sharing content. It might feel weird to be giving away stuff for free, but people really appreciate it. They get to know your work, and
Oh, it's a good idea. Like, I mean, samples sell, right? That's why the grocery store does it. It's the truth.
and you have to be confident enough to be like, yeah, you're gonna love this, really,
Mhm.
even if they don't. Anyway, that's my.
Thank you. Those are really good suggestions to add.
So does Matt still owns anything you put up on their
Can
site?
we, can I come to you after Mary?
Sure.
So my only problem with that and serializing is then you cannot submit that content for a literary journal publication.
Yeah, it'll depend on your situation. Absolutely. You know, that's a really good point as well. Like if you're writing kind of like for that kind of audience, that might be something you don't want to do. Certain genres or whatever, maybe it's less of a thing. Just be sure you know what your community is and your target audience.
Yeah, and most literary publications are okay if you haven't been paid for your work. You know, if it's not considered publication if you haven't been.
That's not true.
compensated.
That's not true.
I'm certainly not.
No.
I'm delusional.
Just look it up before you make those decisions. I wasn't gonna get super into it, but since you're bringing it up, that is actually really true. You wanna be cautious if you do want to submit it for publication somewhere. What that they consider, typically it'll be similar within each genre, similar, I mean, you still wanna check the publication. But the kind of mores, I guess, will be similar. So just look that up before you do it, I guess.
Okay, so when you put an excerpt up on Facebook, does Meta still own it?
That-
Historically, they've said they own everything,
Well,
and they have used people's stuff without.
that
asking
is
for
something
permission.
I unfortunately cannot speak to in any expert way. You know, if they do own it, it's a paragraph of a larger work. I don't know, that really, they're not gonna sue anybody for it, because if they did, they would have been doing it already.
No, but they might use it as an advertisement without paying.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's really, you know, I wish I knew more about the legalities of that, but I don't wanna speak to something I don't
enough.
actually know. so.
Well, and I don't know if anybody was here last time, but that is a great way to get your stuff into the AI generators. So you've got to, our guest speaker last time was about AI, and anything you post on the internet is going in the AI factor. There's no way to stop it.
And that's kind of where like it's such a dilemma, because you don't want to not post at all, right? But it's kind of, it's a bit of a mess out there, and I think about that stuff too.
I also might not want an excerpt from one of my things I posted, promoting, handguns for homeowners.
Well, yeah, exactly. What kind of stuff does this person write?
Taken out of context.
Yeah, no, exactly.
On a kind of,
Hi, thanks for your presentation. I am wondering about the affordable assistant. I guess I know people who do stuff like this, but is there like, where would you look for, I do have ADHD and that is definitely the route I would
Same,
go.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
I actually, I work with contractors all the time, to help me with certain tasks that are hard for me. I have gone to, oh god, it's not called Elance anymore, it's been called something else for ages. Oh my gosh, oh, well, Fiverr is similar, does anybody remember what Elance changed their name to? Upwork, it's called Upwork. Sorry, I like once stuck in 20 years ago, as usual. But, you know, you can look at people, the key is, you gotta look not just at the rates, you have to read the reviews, you know, big time. But I've actually had very successful interactions with people. I've gotten people to make me graphics templates. I've gotten people to like check lists, like my media lists periodically. I like to check them and make sure they're up to date. I have someone do that for me now, and he's always done a great job. So
By media lists, you mean?
like
for which-
magazines, blogs, like
Right,
places
right.
you're gonna send your stuff to gain publicity, hopefully.
Okay. And one more question, do you know, I guess that's how you would find out what going rates are too, if you like. have a
Exactly,
friend.
like I couldn't say, I actually have not gone to one of those sites in a while, because now I just have some relationships with people, so yeah, you'll have to check that.
Okay, thank you.
anything online?
Comments?
Okay. Here,
Yeah.
wanna read
sure.
the comments?
Comments from online. Lisa on the roads, that's very helpful. Thank you. Megan Swain says, literary magazines sometimes consider posting to the web as a form of being previously published. Always check.
Yeah.
Having said that, there are also publications that do reprints anyway, so make sure you have a list handy of who's willing to do reprints. Those are the comments. from
Okay,
online.
thank you.
I have a comment and a question, but I also do, which is that if you have a scheduler, my wife has a job that used to have some social media. If you do use a scheduler, when you have one of those days where the world blows up, you might want to run and stop your funny, frivolous little, because it's a September 11th, it's an October 7th, it's a January 6th. You don't want to be like, read my story about space
Yeah.
worms.
And you know
Yeah.
what, these schedulers, almost, the ones I have used, all have just. Yeah, they usually all have an easy like pause button kind of a thing, like where you can just, you don't have to delete anything, you can just pause. So yeah, that's a really, really good point, you know, and don't be the person trying to capitalize on the thing with like the hashtag on October 7th, for example. I saw some people trying to chime in on that with business stuff. It is so tacky, and I don't think many things are tacky. Okay, but that, just don't do that. Just let the thing happen without your input. I have no idea where we are on time on, so you will let me know. Okay, good.
Yeah, I mean, what is time now?
Also a fair point.
Okay, thank you so much, Beverly. So, up first, we have Alex Gavrelli, and I need to log into my phone, but I know and love Alex, so I know that you're in for a treat. Alex Gavrelli is a genderqueer, femme, Jewish witch, writer, teacher, and gardener. That is so many things to be. They are published in multiple chapbooks, Room Magazine, and the Lambda award-winning anthology Glitter and Grit, Queer Performance from the Heels, from Glitter and Grit, Queer Performance from the Heels on Wheels Femme Galaxy. It's a lot. I did practice this beforehand, but that is still a heck of a title. Sorry, way too much. Alex is currently an MFA candidate in creative writing at the University of Guelph. Come on up, Alex. The chair is optional.
Yeah. Here?
The chair is optional. I just.
Oh, thank you. Hi, everyone, and hi to the audience on YouTube.
So happy you could be here. So I'm going to read a couple of excerpts from my new novel that I've written second draft now, and it's also my thesis for this University of Guelph MFA creative writing program that I'm in that I'm almost finished with. So if I pass the defense, here's so. So I'll just dive right in. The first one doesn't need any preamble. Alicia had 2 fingers in my cunt. This reminds me, a couple of content notes. There is some sexually explicit language. Yeah, I think that's the main. Okay. Let's try again. Take 2. Alicia had 2 fingers in my cunt. And it wasn't sexy because she was my pelvic physiotherapist. She sat on a stool at the end of the massage table where I laid on my back, naked from the belly down, with my feet on the table and knees pointing at the ceiling. Her hair was cut in a bob that bounced like a rubber super ball every time she nodded. She was feeling around the inside walls of my vagina with her fingers. "You're doing a great job," she said. "How does it feel when I push here?" I felt a light pressure like a little rodent bumping its nose against my bladder from the inside. "Feels great," I said, immediately regretting my enthusiasm. I mean, it's fine. It doesn't hurt or make me want to pee. I had been incontinent for over a month, peeing my pants every time I laughed or coughed or sneezed or stood up or sat down. "Good," Alicia said. "Now, I want you to imagine that your vagina is drinking a milkshake through a straw." Alicia had already asked what she should call my genitals. I wondered if she asked everyone or if she was being careful with me because I wrote they, them under pronouns on the intake form. I had said vulva or junk was fine. Cunt, pussy, and front hole were reserved for my lovers. I didn't tell you. She had said she might need to be more specific and asked if vagina and clitoris were okay. Vagina didn't bother me on an emotional level. Clitoris sounded like clit's repressed gradient, which made me laugh. And laughing made me pee a little bit onto Alicia's gloved finger. I didn't know how to drink an imaginary milkshake through a straw with my vagina, so I sucked in my breath instead. Then I sucked in my belly. "Okay, try this instead," Alicia said. "Imagine your clitoris is trying to reach your anus." I pictured my clitoris as a cartoon character, pulling my anus from a rotary phone in the 1980s, twirling the spiral cord around her finger. "Great," Alicia said. "That seems to work for you. Now relax your vagina as you breathe in. I know it may seem counterintuitive." I tried to clear my mind of rodents and phone cords and focused on drawing my breath into my belly instead of my chest. My Pilates teacher said belly breathing was supposed to help with anxiety. "Now exhale," she said, "and pinch my fingers with your pelvic muscles." I tried to pinch her fingers with muscles I wasn't sure I had. "Sometimes incontinence is related to personal struggles," Alicia said, pushing her fingers in deeper. "Is anything difficult going on in your life?" I inhaled and told my vagina to relax. So that's one excerpt. And then this next one comes a little bit later in the book. What you need to know is that the main character's name is Sadie, the protagonist, works in a conservatory, kind of like Allen Gardens, and there's a sloth who lives in the conservatory the gardeners take care of. And the sloth has escaped. And the boss, Sadie's boss, has called gardeners from across the city to help find the sloth. When my recent ex, Morgan, showed up to help search for Helen, I felt nauseous with a combination of dread and hope. She swayed side to side, her butch swagger intact, the red plastic handles of her pruners jutting from their holster on her worn leather tool belt. She carried them everywhere. Morgan worked in a park on the other side of the city, so I was totally unprepared to see her. I didn't have any casual conversation starters ready, and my hair frizzed out on both sides of my head under my baseball cap, like Krusty the Clown. It would have been funny if I could laugh without saturating the pee pad that was stuck to my high-waisted white cotton panties. I longed for Helen the Sloth to tell me where she was hiding so I could join her. My boss gathered all the gardeners in a circle. He demonstrated how to shake a tree with a stick so Helen would move if she was up there. Be careful, I said, she's very sensitive. I downloaded a sloth tracker app, he said. If you find her, take a picture with your exact location and text me immediately. Do not try to pick her up. He wouldn't touch Helen himself, ever since he learned that a single wild sloth could have up to 1,000 beetles in its fur. I didn't think the sloth tracker app would be much help. Once we spotted Helen, the search would be over, since she moved slower than a glacier before climate change. I don't know why we can't pick her up. Sloths don't bite, Morgan said under her breath. My boss had remembered that Morgan and I were girlfriends and thought he was doing me a favor by pairing us up for the search. I didn't have the heart to tell him we'd broken up. If he found out in that tense moment that he had missed months of juicy staff gossip, I worried he might fire me on impulse. Looks like we're going sloth hunting together, Morgan said. We're not hunting, I said. I could feel my eyebrows bunched together as my right temple began to throb. If we were still together, Morgan would have told me my forehead wrinkle was showing. Instead, she was texting someone, probably her new girlfriend. Grab a birch branch and follow me, I said, gesturing at a pile of ornamental branches stacked in the corner. Morgan and I were tasked with doing a closer inspection of the indoor tree canopy. The glass ceiling had been open for ventilation that morning with a computer-controlled motor, so Helen could have climbed out. We left it open so she could return if that was the case. Lucky for Helen, global warming had cranked up the temperature the last few years, so May felt more like July. I hoped she wasn't outside, but at least she would be comfortable. Morgan and I got into a search party rhythm pretty quickly. She hit the trees with her branch, and I peered through the binoculars that I kept in my locker. I turned the ring around the lens with one hand until I could see the individual veins of the macadamia leaves 20 feet up. No Helen. Morgan's hands were wrapped around the birch branch like it was a baseball bat. She swung hard at the macadamia tree. God damn it, Morgan, I can't see a thing through these binoculars with those leaves flapping in front of my eyes, I said. Stop hitting the trunk so I can see if Helen is up there. They're not flapping in front of your eyes, Morgan said, but she stopped hitting the tree. After that, we worked in awkward silence. Morgan and I used to stay up until 3 a.m., fucking and talking about gardens, astrology, and exes. We had never been at a loss for words. Now I couldn't think of anything to say. I wanted Morgan to tell me she couldn't live without me, and that's why she had volunteered for overtime to find Helen. I wondered if she felt the sexual tension like I did. When we were dating, she came by to pick me up after work one day and ended up fisting me under the macadamia tree. The conservatory had been closed, but it was still light out. Anyone could have looked in the clear glass windows on either side of the building to see me on my back with my work pants bunched around my ankles, Morgan's hand buried in my crotch, wrist deep. That was the first time we had fucked without gloves, even though there were stacks of boxes of nitrile gloves in the back that we used for watering. She probably had dirt under her nails, but it didn't matter because I needed her inside me urgently. That was back when we couldn't keep our hands off each other, when she thought polyamory sounded like fun. Morgan had kept a bottle of lube in her tool belt, just in case. But I didn't need much of a warm-up that day. I didn't look for dreamy eyes or strong muscles or a full set of teeth in a lover. I paid close attention to the shape of people's hands. Morgan had the fingers of a violinist, and the top of her palms were thick with calluses from 20 years of clutching garden rakes. She used to do live demos at the feminist sex toy store on how to stimulate a G-spot to ejaculation. I'm embarrassed to admit that I didn't know where my G-spot was until I met Morgan. She was a fucking wizard with those hands. She pounded me so hard that evening, I thought I could feel her fist in my chest. When I told her that, she had stopped thrusting and held her fist still, deeper than seemed possible. That's because I took your heart, she said, I'm holding it in my hand right now, and I'm not gonna let it go. That was the most romantic thing anyone had ever said to me. Morgan used her birch branch to poke at leaves on the grapefruit tree, which was covered in sooty mold. After a while, she leaned her branch against the wall and started to cut back the suckered stems of the bougainvillea, which were a vertical eyesore against the domed shape of the rest of the vine. I imagined her stepping on a 2-inch bougainvillea thorn, so sharp it would pierce through the sole of her work boot into the bottom of her foot. She would cry for me to go get the first aid kit. We would sit down across from each other, and I would place her boot in my lap, slowly untying the laces. I would be the one in charge this time. Morgan's phone rang. She answered the call. "Hey, babe, I was just thinking about you," she said. I held my breath and squeezed my eyes shut to keep the tears in. Morgan didn't like it when I called her a serial monogamist, but she had a habit of lining up her next lover when the relationship she was in started to decline. She was still living with her ex when we met, sneaking phone calls with me after her ex went to bed. I guess some people would say that 13 weeks and 5 days was long enough to get over someone. I was pretty sure Morgan wasn't keeping track. And that's all for now. And yeah, keep an eye out for my novel. I'll post about it on social media. Someday when it comes out. And to follow me, I'm on Instagram, @AlexCaparelli_Toronto.
Thank you so much, Alex. That was quite the soccer love story. I don't know if anyone saw, but when you're talking about holding your heart in your hand, my jaw dropped. So, so next up we have Puerto Rican Canadian Maria Helena Auerbach Radikov, and she is a writer and editor who lives in Tacarana with Raven, a pre-loved rehomed mouser. Mary served as volunteer editor for refugee writers through PEN Canada. Her poetry collection, Some Conditions Apply, launched in 2020. So everyone please welcome Mary.
You know, I should sit, but my feet are gonna touch the floor, so. The rung, so I'll just stand. Okay. I was going to read from my book, and I was so excited to be here to read from my book, but my book has disappeared. I had a few copies, and the one with the little pads in it isn't there. So
Like it's supposed to be on the shelves here?
no, it was on the table. It was on the table. So I just grabbed a book so you can see what it looks like. And I'm going to, mercifully, I had it on paper. Now, there are no music therapists here tonight. I was a music therapist for 35 plus years. I know that they're out there watching, so I'm going to read from the music section of the book. First one, Sonata. Tones in simultaneous fluid promise repose in suspended space, then detour to a deceptive cadence. With myths, they yearn to story the course. It fords the bridge of transformed time in new designs of familiar comfort, like cozy sweaters by magic, unwound on a different day and distant shore. Homage to music therapy. Rocking and crying, your soul in tatters, pain flows through a shattered mind. We sing and bring you songs with the music of your words. Not published in Ars Medica. Then Tosca, the opera. Tosca, we were hoping you'd think things through, try to get over it. No matter your beloved Cavaradossi lies executed at your feet, liberty is in the air. Art will prevail, and you, luscious diva, can love again. Gloria, stop. Let fly your faith to unfettered hope. Just this time, please, please, don't jump. The opera always ends when, when they die, right? N equals 24. And this is, if you read my blog post, this is the poem that I read on the open mic at that first Brockton Readers Series in 2009. N equals 24, or maybe 23, or 25, or 26. Magic spells, or maybe counts the same way we do. Like the speeding cyclist who stops traffic to kiss the startled pedestrian, we create islands to ride while the ride is good, until harsh words ever meet from bold. We function in historical moments, hysterical mindsets. Without humor, we die of despair. Without despair, we die in peace. Without music, we die of meaninglessness. Without art to tell us how meaningless we can be, we lose all reason. Reality through tailspin lens of pure song and metaphor mirrors objects closer than they appear. This journey longing for unattainable fulfillment never knows its route or destination. We forget memory is disruptive. How easier we imagine than remember. We stand as the judge enters the courtroom. We clap as the conductor ascends to the podium. We gasp as the baby falls from his mother's arms to death. Nothing more can be said, but all is expressible. Everything is translatable in silence. In our duty to tell tales, complicit with witness and remembrance beyond words, good and bad endings include the backstory belly of the whale. Brief, aching, poignant want spends generous gratitude for all who crosses its path. Truth sprouts like small crevice wildflowers after rain in 24 perfect petals, or maybe 23, or 25, or 26. So I'm going to read some new work now, some published, some not. What I'm writing mostly now is expanding a memoir essay that was published about my father's Holocaust journey from war-torn Europe down to the Caribbean where I was born. So this is Fire and Salt, the epigraph by Luis Borges from the poem Limits. All that vast yesterday over which today I bend, scourged with fire and salt. This is after Paul Celan. Volcanic eruption, hurricane, landfall, earthquake, riptide, bravatas, landslide, all benign alongside how we home, how we break up lines even before they can run the tarmac for takeoff. Entombed in seagrass or floating free on a cinder corpse foul breeze, reach search for words to write messages down deep in this bottle, this plague-shaped Berkshire through death bringing. Here, because thanks to skill, blind will, dumb luck, you survive, resisting historylessness. Morning, immune to fire and salt, looks back to read the page over inscribed shoulder. And for the life of me, I can't get this thing placed. So I wrote a fire poem, I wrote a salt poem, and finally, thank you, Literary Review of Canada, for publishing Salt in the April issue. The lengths we go to. Salt. Dried from buoyant seas or hewn from rock, my presence purifies holy sites. Ancient midwives rubbed me on newborns in rituals to ward off the evil eye. Covenant carried over well-trod roads, my endurance traded for warriors, for gold, and other salaries worthy of me. To cleanse, gestate, cook, and brine, even as my sting fades, my pact persists through time. Then in the Caesuras, this poem waits in the Caesuras, functions as negative space in art and how silence frames musical sound. Like the mating aria of the neighborhood robin that soars above early din and titter, unsolicited advice, geranium red, perfect as antidote for cool soggy dawns. No word is foreign. And the epigraph here is, I didn't know then the words are enormous icebergs hiding under glacial waters, much more than they show. From the poem Stones, in Late to the House of Words, selected poems by Gemma Gorga, translated from the Catalan by Sharon Dolan. This won the Griffin Prize for translation, I think, in 21-22. I gravitate towards translation like a moth towards light, my untrained foray exceeding my grasp. Translation is fascination by what is known but unsaid, by what is said but unknown. Adults who speak in mother tongues not to teach or clarify but to obfuscate meaning, hide from the children, yet leave traces. A word or two here, a phrase or two there, mostly as unrequited need to understand, to make sense of what is oblique, implied, obscured, hidden. My grade school French morphs and reappears in the kitchen shared with Swiss neighbors. Spanish real estate hardwired into my cerebral cortex, acquired with English during that optimal window for language acquisition, feels trapped, out of reach, in a mind of its own where no word is foreign. Then my second last poem is what I'm grappling with right now, knots. K-N-O-T, knots. I'm finding it everywhere I read. In translation, it's what trips you up. Margaret Atwood quoted in Pat Schneider is you have to go for the knots when you're writing, the resistance that you find in therapy as well. When you meet up against the knots, that's where you need to work. So this is very much a work in progress. Knots. Not knots known as knobs, gnarls, snarls, and bumps. Not nautical knots tied on purpose or failed kindergarten shoelace bows. But knots gone naughty, knots gone rogue, knots so annoyingly out of control like the yarn basket after the cats have a frisk, the knots that know better yet still resist untangling. Require persistence when facing resistance, knots that say, stop, listen here. Seek prescience, yet be grateful for presence, enduring presence, to hang in for the distance. Those are the knots I can do. And I'm going to end with a last poem from the book. Writing prompt was written in memoriam for Priscilla Apple and everyone we lost during the first wave of COVID-19, which was when my book was coming out. It's writing prompt. Using freshly molted feathers from fledgling sparrows, write your name as it appeared in yesterday's obituary. Let them squawk, don't stop. Keep both hands moving across the sun. And in closing, I'm just going to end with a bragging rights. My cat is a published poet. My cat wrote a poem when she moved in and walked along my keyboard, my computer keyboard. She spit out this little poem in two perfect tercets. You can buy this picture of my cat for $2. Thanks for the opportunity of reading for you again. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And that actually brings me to one of the points I want to make, which is that there are books from our authors for sale. You can hand sell from the authors who put their books on that back table, and Vincent's is on the shelves as well. And I'm sure one of us or the staff here can help you find them. And then the other thing I'm going to do is plug for you to give us money. So if you have cash, you can put it in this picture here. Oh, look at that! Look at that! Look at that! Isn't that nice? Oh, I'm pretty sure this person over here said they had money. If you do not carry cash, you can go to PayPal. I have to log into this. Well, PayPal information, right? But I don't know. Oh, it's not in here. I think it's just PayPal.me. Do we not? All right. Pretty sure we have a PayPal. If you go to our website, there should be a button to go and donate to us that way. All of our money goes to authors, goes to literary publishing professionals. We feel like it's very important to pay a living wage, to pay money, to pay a significant like money to people. We actually, this is kind of related, so I want to mention it. We actually kind of pay more now that our videos are up on YouTube because of this whole idea where it might be considered published, like this might be audio rights to your work, depending on where you're submitting it. So we asked the Arts Council, we're like, hey, if we're gonna have these videos up, I think we should pay people more, and we do. But the Ontario Arts Council wants you to get some of your own money, they do. They don't want to be your own line item. So if you can put some money in there, that's great. However, I am, contractually obligated and very from the heart want to thank the Ontario Arts Council for all of their wonderful support of this initiative. Is there anything else I need to say before I move on? Oh, yes, I do. Please like and subscribe. Yeah, if you're here right now, you probably don't have YouTube open, but the next time you open YouTube, just smash that like button, hit subscribe. My kid watches a lot of like Gamer Pros, and I was like, yes, smash that like button, subscribe. It really helps. It really does help. And if you're on YouTube right now, you can do that. Like this video, go back and like every single one of our other videos since July 2020 when we all started YouTubing. Subscribe to our channel. It really helps with the algorithms to like get us to show up in other people's recommendations. So it's a big. Okay, and now without further me pleading for you to help us, I would like to present our next writer. Vincent Enyoke is a Nigerian Canadian writer and software engineer. His stories have appeared in Smoke Long Quarterly, The Rumpus, and Passages North. He won the 2021 Austin Clarke Fiction Prize and was a finalist for the 2023 RBC Bronwyn Wallace Fiction Award. This is pretty cool, right? Those are good. Those are good things. Perfect Little Angels is his debut story collection. Come on up and present. Back, I need to go higher.
I'm gonna sit.
You will be the same height as I am.
Can everyone hear me? All right, it's been a long day at work, so I have like 2 brain cells left. This is my debut short story collection from Arsenal Pulp Press. There's 14 stories in here set in Nigeria mostly, it's from Canada. And I'm going to be reading a page from the title story, Perfect Little Angels. This story follows 2 men who meet on a certain app. And they live in Nigeria, so it's pretty dangerous for men to meet on certain apps in Nigeria. And they meet in secret on this hill on the outskirts of town. This hill is where the town dumps its garbage. So at the bottom, is garbage. But at the top, if you wade through all of that, you have a really beautiful view of the city, and you have these big rocks that kind of shield you. They begin to meet every Friday in the evening after they get done with work. And this is the second Friday that they're meeting. There has been an accident, you say, and already it is more than you have ever uttered to me. I see that. There's 10 a day now, it feels like. Do you do this often? You ask. Bring men up here? No. You're the first I've met from the app. First I've brought up here. You chuckle without smiling. It's true, I say. A switch of anger flares in the word. Why me then? You sound almost accusing. Why now? I don't know. Ever fucked a man? No. Never done anything with anyone. Well, a girl kissed me once back in secondary school, and I've watched porn, that kind, a few times. And you're really 22? Yes. Are you really 23? You're late to call an amusement. I've been 23 for 3 years now. But I'm told I look it. How did you find this place? Oh, I reply. My older brother visited long ago. Ma and Pa moved us here from Papa and began a sewing business. Our superstitious neighbor got this idea in Ndubisi's head that having a small reptile in our home would mean good luck for their work. Your smile reaches your eyes. So your brother came here to find a reptile. I mean, the night, yeah. He dragged me with him too. It was before all the trash, so there were actually others around. We found rodents and centipedes, and one time a dead hawk, but no reptiles. Not until after months of searching. Something in my voice makes you shift closer. Are you okay? You ask. I want to tell you that there is a ghost in my memory, mostly conquered, but for the occasional hunt. A small and beardless Ndubisi dashing across Salamander Hill. Easy to laugh at from his own stupid jokes, even on the days we returned home empty-handed. I laughed too, because I liked the sound of it, and how his happiness promised mine. I lead you a quarter of the way down the hill. Here, I say, is where we found the slumbering leaf-toed gecko. It was the most excited I ever saw in the BC. He danced all the way home. Ma was less pleased though. She asked him to get rid of it, but Undubisi swore God had sent us Meso. He named it Meso, short for Mesomachi, yeah. He almost got in trouble at school because he kept picking insects out of the premises garden to feed his little pet. He sang to Meso every night, told him all kinds of stories about his day. He massaged Meso's little neck with his tongue. He chuckled. Meso lived like a king. Sure did. After Ndubisi found Meso, he didn't really have a reason to come back to Salamander Hill. I didn't either, until the last couple of years, when it turned into a dump. I realized I could shake off a rough day here by myself. Well, you and the shit and the flies. There's none of that up here, just a good view and some quiet. I know we can hear the cars and the danfos, but they're down there. It's like there's thick glass between us. You don't reply. It's as if you're listening for it the way I do, beyond the whoop of distant sirens, beyond the sound of breath leaving our nostrils. How about you? I ask. You frown. How about me, what? You been with guys? Yeah, plenty. I fucked guys, guys fucked me. Oh. Most of it was back in Abia. Before that though, I had a girlfriend. Loved her. We were together for 6 years. Had plans to get married someday. Well, why didn't you? The question causes you to lose focus. You stare at me without seeing me. After a moment, you head up the hill toward the ring of boulders. I join you there, still far enough away this time that our legs can't touch. My stomach is strange, turning, twisting. Do your parents know? You ask. Your brother? My parents died 8 years ago. Not long after we found Meso, funny enough. Lorry driver fell asleep one night and cleared their car off the road. And no, Ndubisi doesn't know. I'm sorry, you say. It's fine. Happened a long time ago. Doesn't matter. It's been hard. I shrug. Sure, but not because of grief. Ma and Pa were hustlers, the never home type. Ndubisi looked after me far more than they ever did. Everything he cooked tasted like charcoal, but he always made sure I ate and got enough sun and did my homework. After they died, he changed. I had to grow up fast. I dropped out of secondary school to take over their business. You're looking after us ever since. Jesus, and overdramatic sadness contorts your face. All by yourself? Who else would do it? Right, you say. Well, my parents are around, thankfully, and I've got a younger sister, Esther. They don't know. They never will. But something possessed me to tell Vanessa. I would have died for that woman. Probably still would today. But that didn't make me right for her. Not in the way she deserved. I knew from the start too. That's the fucked up part. There's a whole silent conversation that goes on the first time you kiss someone, you know? I want to tell you that I don't know. You know I don't know. But you're sliding over slowly, leaning forward to close the oblong batch of pebble dirt between us. I want to stop you. I want to say that my heart is beating so fast that I'm sure I will die, but my stomach still feels all kinds of twisted. I want to tell you that being this afraid tastes like metal, that we should go our separate ways and never speak again, that I would delete the app tonight and return to real life. But your cold hands cup my face and your tongue pats my lips. The taste of you is cracked and salty and laced with cashews, and I trapped the skin of your mouth, and your hand presses against my back, and your eyes are closed, so I close mine too, and in the darkness, 1,000 stars explode. A week later, this time, when your tongue moves lower than my neck, I don't push your head away. You unbuckle my belt, and I learn how another's touch can cause my back to fold in shivers. Afterward, you direct me downward, and I focus only on the dark and how it is all skin, nothing but skin. I focus on your words. Go deeper. Not so much teeth. Breathe. Faster. Slower. Yes. Yes. Just like that. Until your words aren't words at all, but moans blended into a single sound. Until you're shivering too. Skipping forward a week later. You scan below with outstretched finger. Where's your shop? You ask. I guide your finger to one of the dark patches below. Right there, tiny street. NWC once mentioned moving us somewhere close to the main markets, near the action. But you know how he is. All talk, you reply. Yes, all talk and drink and sleep and TV. He's always watching old sports games like Pa used to on Sundays. His talk. Sometimes I wonder if leaving school was the biggest mistake I ever made. Friends I grew up with keep packing their bags and disappearing from here. They are actually starting their lives. School doesn't always help, you reply. The only reason I got a job at Shell after undergrad was because of Dad's connections. And he's the only reason I'm bothering right now with my master's. After I'm done, I don't know what's next. Look around. I can't even tell you where my school is from here. I smile. Guess. I don't know. It's next to a small church with a zinc roof, Holy Ghost something. There are already churches like that here. You place a palm over your eyes and zigzag your outstretched finger. You stop at a shadowy water tank that towers over an orphanage. That it? Not even close. You drop your hand on my lap. Fuck. Why didn't you do your master's in Abia? Oh, you reply, I just had to be far away from Vanessa for a while. Because she hates you? You shake your head, as if such a thing is impossible. Vanessa is made of pure love. When I confessed the truth to her, she didn't speak to me for a while, for weeks. Eventually, though, she came around. Forgive me even, after days of talking and asking questions. But our families went to the same church, they shopped at the same markets. She didn't complain of anything, but I could tell I was proud of her, seeing me, remembering what we'd lost. So I left. I know I can't stay away forever. I'm gonna have to see her again someday. And Dad, Mom, all my nosy aunts asking when I'll come to my senses and get married. I mean, I say, Vanessa took it okay. Maybe your parents will too. Your laugh is bitter. Papa is nobody here, but back home, he's a celebrity in all our churches. He would rather die than have a single soul think his son is a faggot. One time, years back, he caught my sister Esther masturbating. Papa burned her hands with hot iron and locked her in the basement all weekend. He'll choose God over us any day. That's our dear Nigeria, I reply. Your grip on my finger tightens. It always fucked with me how Dad could say he loved us more than anything. How he could make us feel it too. But what he really loved was his idea of who we had to be. Some biblical fantasy. The moment we weren't God's perfect little angels, he became the devil. I never got it. From the ether, a memory rises, a squeal and a blood splatter. It's not so strange, I reply. The day after Ma and Pat's funeral, University took his dear Meso outside. He picked up a rock and crushed it, chucked the corpse in the trash. His face was blank the whole time. It was scary seeing him like that, but I understood what he was thinking. Messo's job was to protect Ma and Pa. Messo failed. Never worry he would do that to you if he knew. Could you tell him one day? Long ago, a bad day was Reverend Sister Kate, my primary school headmistress, flogging my entire class for noise making. It was falling off the branch of a mango tree near the lagoons and scraping my knees bloody. On those days, Ndubisi shot his playful barbed words. He ruffled my hair with his hands and walked us to the market for sachets of frozen yogurt. But he died with Ma and Pa. The mud-streaked man that I pulled out of the gutter every month was a stranger. I won't tell him, I say, and his blood, so I can't ever leave him. I pause. There are days I wish he was dead. Drop my hand. Do you mean that? I look you right in the eye, so you know I do. Alcohol poisoning, probably. We bottles pile up around our bedroom. Or a heart attack. If I told him, I'm sure he would do worse to me than he did to Meso. Like I betrayed the promise that I never made. But he's the traitor. I don't tell you that I sometimes spit in his food. That I sometimes imagine his death at my own hands. My palms clasped around the dinner knife's hilt. My shoulders tremble and say enough. You pull me toward your chest. We are beyond the ring of boulders, conjoined pixels exposed to the dark world below. I bury my nostrils in the smell of you, and I let the tears fall. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vincent. That was very moving. Hey, everyone, we have one more reader tonight. So we have D.F. Steinmeist here, who's a recently published author with Brockton with his book Buster Buck. Wow. Buster.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
Flux. It almost got me. It's his newest collection of poetry, and his well-received debut, The Bone Weaver, was a finalist for the Canadian Authors Association Poetry Award. Alongside living with the disabling effects of chronic disease, Crohn's, he currently teaches creative writing at Carleton University.
Think I'm
Yep. You know.
No, that's good. That's good. That works. That works. Okay. Thanks, guys, for being here. Thanks, Dorianne and Elaine, and the other volunteers at the Brockton Writers Series for this opportunity to read and share some work, share some poetry. Thanks also to Glad Day for hosting the event. You host, right?
Yeah.
Well done. Good stuff. So I'm going to read, I haven't done this before. I've read the occasional poem from this cluster, this section, and I haven't read these 9 poems all together. And so this section's called Midsummer Disjunction. And these poems juxtapose urban gardening, life in Ottawa during the first summer under COVID, and then some of my struggles with Crohn's. And I originally wanted to write something about this, the bodily experience of having Crohn's, but I found that the poetry that was coming out was just, there was something that was just too egocentric about it, and too focused on the self. So I found later on, but that by interjecting some of the communal experiences that we all experienced during COVID, and then the life and death struggles of the animals and plants in my garden, led to an opening that I could talk about this material. So Midsummer Disjunction 1. Expect setbacks, lilts the medical pundit on the early morning news. Across the Ottawa River, among Lake Gatinois,
there's wide viral spread. Fear dilates the opening of a wound. In my garden, a 5-petal flower, yellow as butter, large as my palm. By what mysterious agency do you transform into an acorn squash? Forgetful pollinator, I'll try my best not to gawk at furtive, obliging act of transfer. With this flare, my body sweats out fever, overreacts, subverts the deep set ache of immunological misfiring, cascades of natural killer cells and cytotoxic T cells, the open perineal gash of fistula weeps, draining the filth and flux of my bodily toxin. When will I enter that final phase and exit? 2. A cicada killer clasps a paralyzed cigale in its mandibles, drags it through the leaf litter. What horror awaits in the insect secret crypt, slow dissolution, the larval devouring of self? Don't bother asking a parasitic wasp about its ethics. A poet drops by for socially distant drinks, talks about his gout, agony that has him crawling on his knees to the bathroom. In these times, it's easy to recall bodily pain, unnameable, burrowing, abject, suppurating wound of bowel perforation, shoved onto the floor by the force of it, screams. I try to smother. 3. I dig out lawn, gouge open a bed for a garden, half dead, haphazard grass, no great loss. Turning over the clay, slick soil exposes the grubs of scarab beetles. Tiny limbs scratch at my fingertips, maxilla snap at the air. My earlier attempts at biologic warfare failed. Nematodes infused into suburban underworld, parasites consuming parasites. I fling larvae, repulsive, pulpy white bodies into the deserted street. An opportunistic robin on the concrete curb awaits, eager, devour. 3 days later, the robin still trails after, hopeful, with her mouth agape. She ropes in a mate, weaves a nest of cedar strips where the grapevines twist around the power junction. 4. In the morning, I totter outside, weed the garden. It's a grind to dig, loosen, extirpate tenacious roots. Creeping Jenny, creeping Charlie, Virginia creeper, self-seeding violet, stinging nettle, wild mustard. Infiltrate, push outward, subvert. Pernicious weeds propagate in direct proportion to my uprooting force. Am I growing vegetables, tending flower beds, or simply feeding this yawning maw of compost? As backyard soil enriches, darkens, worms proliferate. Meadow voles appreciate the work of decomposition. Later on, I'll chronicle root measures of inflammation, leakage, and decay, indignities I keep, even from my wife. 5. Once each month, a nurse jabs a hypo into me, flushes 10 grand into my veins. Today she rushes, trembling, voice fluting with fear. Has my body become a vector of viral contagion, despair, death? The shot burns, injection site swells, muscles stiffen. Somehow I become a man with golden limbs, 24-karat accretion of big pharma's novel biologics. Angry neighbors, irritable at lockdowns and forced intimacy, squawk at each other in Ottawa Valley patois. Honeybees, sweat bees, bumblebees swarm, dive bomb the mounds of lavender. Come autumn, these same bees will cling to our door for warmth. 6. In the States, 150 1,000 dead and rising. Infection rates double, redouble, double again. Newspapers prophesize apocalypse. We enter red phase restrictions, shop for elderly in-laws. Shut in behind plate glass, they await their rations. In the grocery, everyone's jittery, on edge, alarmed. A young punk in pink sees me coming, skitters away. The garden plants, off kilter, not well at all. No relief from this freakish spell of dry weather. The hostas curl, yellow, become brittle. Cumulus clouds bubble on the horizon, obscuring oncoming comet. Two tails, a 6,000-year spin cycle. 7. 3 ambulances line up outside Maple Ridge. Paramedics bring out the dead and dying. Hazard lights flashing, sparking in the sun. The pumpkin continues its unabated spread, shoots out tendrils and vines as it colonizes the domain of more pliant plants. I cut back the runners slithering into my rows of peas and beans. I pinch off blossoms in vain hope that the spiny, sticky leaves will suckle the growing orange globes. In response, this persistent creeper grows thicker, bristling with gummy spines to ward off my prying, probing fingers. You'd be surprised how much it resists my touch. 8. At the epicenter of the Heron Gate project, City Health parks a big red bus. Lines form. Filipina, Sudanese, and Syrian women who work the elder care and hospice wards are getting sick, taking home the virus, taking home the crown of corona. Choke cherries hang in big red clusters outside our kitchen window. In a week, they'll turn purple, be ready for jelly, but not for us. For blackbirds gather these bird berries first, their timing unerring. I'll admit, it terrifies me. At Grasshopper Park, hammered by abdominal cramps, I try not to void myself. I find cover in the vagrants' camp cut into the wooded hill. Bird cherries hang there too, in big red clusters. 9. Living ampersand. The long, sinuous lowercase of snake curls inside my shadow, slipping low towards me. In the willow's shade, it seeks out the little peepers, the chirping, fleeing peepers. 2 dead in Kenosha, a Wisconsin town I drove through 2 summers ago. On TV, mass protests and vigilante murder. When my gastroenterologist calls, I can't picture her. I listen to her disembodied voice. Her words carry the weight of absolute authority of God. If she were here, she'd witness my fistula delta break into its 8 corrosive, caustic drains. Was it the Byzantine Greeks who first learned to set the ocean sea ablaze to incinerate their enemies? Yes, that's how you grind down a stone, a self. All it takes is running water, fire, and time. That's that section.
All right, we're gonna put some chairs up here and if all the readers can come and sit.
Can I read one more?
Oh.
That was a section. I want to read one more part.
Yes.
And originally I was gonna read the 30, but I was gonna read this very sweet poem about going with my daughter to a community pool. But Alex and Vincent went into the dirty zone, so I feel like I gotta read the dirty.
Please.
I haven't read this in a public ever. Bear with me. It's Chaucer. Okay, Crick song. What a night, what calling out, what coming and going, what maypole playing, what license, what longing, what liberty, what roistering bowsing, what Roman and goatish braying, what apish swaying, what lips and rigid runnels, what easing slick, dripping hole to hole, what digging, rooting, rutting, and leaping, what showers, what unstaunched and wanton flow, what spendings and drippings and oozings, what salty and shady tears, what drizzle and glazing, what blushing and blessing and swears, what ways to sharpen days and sing each other.
I
felt like that.
No, you had to do that. You absolutely had to. That was required.
So if all of our readers want to come up to the front, we'll do a short Q&A. Pass it around as needed. Yeah, do we have any questions from our audience? Right off the bat, for any of our readers?
He wants to ask how to write sexy.
I had a question about that. Well, I was wondering for intimate scenes or more even just like personal parts of your writing, how do you feel like about your friends or family? Or how do you get past any like feelings or nerves that might be a bit uncomfy of like, I don't know, I was thinking of like my dad reading. I would have a hard time with that. So I'm curious what all your experiences are.
Sure, and then you. So yeah, I've actually been writing and performing erotic stuff for like, I don't know, 25 years or something. So I've just been really moved in that direction. And so I guess that sort of like is bigger than that fear of people hearing it. But also my mom might be watching right now. She's supportive, and I guess she does whatever compartmentalizing she needs to do. And I just sort of trust my friends and family to take care of themselves. And then I guess I actually, it's part of what I'm really enjoying about writing fiction is that it is fiction. And even if it's written in first person, it's still, you know, it may be coming from truth or there may be things I relate to, but it does help me sort of separate a bit. So that's what I'll say.
So I think of the discomforts of my parents reading, you know, stuff like that. And I shove it in a box and I throw the box away. I feel like when I get into the group of writing, I find myself, it's literally just me and the screen. There's no one here, there's no one over my shoulder, there's no one reading about like this man sucking this out of my penis. It is just me and my screen. And that sense of privacy and freedom lets me write whatever I want. It's very freeing. And only after the fact do I decide, do I want to share this with the world? And I mean, most times the answer is yes. For this particular story, the scene, you know, where it's like it's all skin, nothing but skin, is actually one of the few very explicit scenes in the book. But in Nigeria, like queerness itself, queer existence, two men holding hands is already so shameful. And part of literature is liberation, like feeling free to embrace the parts of me that for so long were locked in a box. And that means the beauty and nervousness and thrill and excitement of the first time you meet someone and you're exploring each other's past and histories and also bodies. So speaking to that emotional honesty was far more important to me than the very real fears of, what if my parents read this? Fun fact, my dad read it. That story won a prize and he asked for a link to the story to read it. Sent him the link and he never replied. So it was probably a little too much for him, but you know, we live.
Briefly, I have no shame.
I think I would agree. I mean, sex is something to celebrate, you know, not to be shameful about, things to be shameful about, but not sex. And I have to admit, I used to write a lot more erotic poetry. And I did find sort of the Hamlet scene a little chilly towards it. And I would submit that material to magazines, never get published. And then when I read it, some of the bigger series, you could feel like some people get uncomfortable. But yeah, I don't care about that. Okay, oh. Good.
Thank you, I really appreciate that. Maybe we'll learn to be more brave. Does anyone else have any questions? Any curiosity? Yeah.
It's interesting. I wrote a memoir a while back, and everyone that read it had no problem with it, loved it. The only problem was a family member, my brother, he didn't want to see it. Didn't want me to talk about it or had any questions about it. So I appreciate that you all are writing what you feel and what you want to say. So yeah, and that's what I did. I wrote my memoir, just revealing everything, all the sexual events and threesomes I had, all of them. At one. But I didn't want to well, how do you say that? Put things in different compartments. Because I did that a lot during my life, and I just wanted to say everything. And my brother had an objection to that. He's a bit on the religious side, so maybe that could be why. So thank you all for reading, even though I came late, didn't hear all of your readings, but I applaud you. Thank you.
Anything online?
What are all of your social medias that you want?
I should have been the one that asked that.
So it's just my publishing name. My book is DS Stymist, both on Instagram and Facebook. So it's pretty straightforward.
Well, I hate social media. I loathe social media. I I'm on LinkedIn. I have a website and people find me that way. As a matter of fact, a long lost dear family friend from Puerto Rico just found me by Googling my name. So I use my website.
I also have a website which needs to be updated, and that's alexcaparelli.com, Alex, C-A-F as in Frank, A-R-E-L-L-I.com. And I'm Alex Caparelli on, I have a Facebook, page that's public, and then Instagram, as I said earlier, Alex Caparelli _Toronto. And I'm gonna try to get better about posting things like my cat and my garden. Because I mostly do just promote things, so.
You also have your own series. Wrote that.
Oh, the Speakeasy, actually, I'm not anymore. I did my 2 years, of that, so. But there is an amazing reading series called Speakeasy Reading Series that happens at Glad Day. And there's new, they're one of the same, anyway, I won't go on.
So I'm on Instagram and Twitter. My Instagram is just my first name, period, my last name. So Vincent.Anioke, that's A-N-I-O-K-E. And then my Twitter, to keep it wild and crazy, is the reverse. So my last name and then my first name. So A-N-I-O-K-E, Vincent. I post about, stories I like from other writers. That's pretty much it, really. Not sure.
Any other questions? Now it's your chance.
I want to know what everybody's reading.
That's what I was gonna ask as
Oh,
well.
that's
We
what
always
I
do
wanted
that.
to say. You've been here before, you know us.
We could do that now, though. So what is everyone reading?
So the vast majority of what I read these days is actually unpublished. I volunteer as a reader for Smoke Long Quarterly. And so I read about 15 to 20 stories from aspiring writers every week. It's really, really great because, when I used to submit stories to magazines, it felt like this black hole, and I didn't know what's happening on the other side. And now I'm on the other side, and I can see, oh, like it's not a black hole, there's actual people that read our stories and make comments. I would say that it's really tough because Moklong publishes about 8 stories per issue, 4 issues per year. So 32 stories per year are published and we receive over 10,000 submissions. So for the most part, we're saying no. And what I've learned is that just because we say no doesn't mean that we didn't find things to love in the story. And that made me feel great about my own rejections, you know. Like I pour my heart and soul into a piece and then it gets a 2-line rejection and I'm like, how dare you? That's my baby, how dare you? But behind the scenes, people do read your stuff and like, even when it's rejected, there's some part that resonates with them. So that's been great. The last book I read that was published was a novel called Blessings by a Nigerian writer named Chukwuebuka Ibe. It's a queer coming of age story and it's just really complex and beautiful.
One of the recent books I read was There by Tommy Orange, and if you haven't read it, do. I don't know if you want to hear more about it. It's written by, so Tommy Orange is an indigenous author from Oakland, California. And this book is, part of what's so brilliant about it is that it's written in every POV that you can imagine. I think it includes like first person, second person, even first person we. And third person, and then also there's like 12 different characters and they're all their first person, and then so you kind of get to know these characters and then it builds up to this big event. And he just came out with a sequel, Wandering Stars, which I haven't read yet, but I'm very excited to read. So he's a phenomenal writer.
Well, I recently read Yellowface, which was very painful. And a really excoriating read. Highly recommend any writer to read that. And then I'm just finishing The Wall Between, what Jews and Palestinians don't want to know about each other. And it is a very difficult read. And I'm so grateful to these authors for articulating what has troubled me for years. And it's an excellent history of the problem and how the other side of the problem is the problem. And there's a way forward that they give. It's a very, very important book.
The last poetry book I read was Chichiro Yang's Last One at the Party. It's up from Ice House. Just, you know, lovely poems about the difficulties of being an insider, outsider, growing up on the prairies. Lovely book. And I'll put a plug in as well for my good friend Stan Madaman Reese's Elementary Particles that came out with Brick this past year, which is excellent as well.
Thank you, great suggestion. Last chance for questions. Do we have any questions online? Last chance, any other questions? Okay, I think we'll wrap it up. All right.
So we will wrap it up, but please feel free to stay, have a drink, because that supports Flag Day, and then we can all chat and get to know each other. But I would like to invite you all to our next Brockton Writer Series on September 11th, 2024. We'll be back here in person at Glad Day Bookshop and also still on YouTube. So if you can't make it here, tune in on YouTube, like and subscribe, share all of our social media posts. They'll start coming out around 4 weeks before the event. So, you know, follow us on our socials. And you will be hearing from Hannah Mary McKinnon, Kevin T. Craig, Lily Soltanen, and Jeffrey Douglas. And as always, we'll be bringing in an industry professional to teach us something about the business, art, or craft of writing. Thank you very much. Have a great night.